Hello students, welcome to this online course of water resource engineering. So up till now we have discussed about the design of canal by using, first we have seen Kennedy's theory. After that we have seen the Lacey's theory, which was the improvement over Kennedy's theory. So we have seen the various regime channels and how Kennedy and Lacey have given their own design formulas and their own design methods. So let us move to the second part of this unit, which is diversion headworks. So what is a diversion headwork? The work which are constructed at the head of the canal in order to divert. So what kind of work are these? Diversion. So these headworks must be doing some kind of diversion. So in our case, that diversion is of diversion of water. So the work which are constructed at the head of the canal. So where these are constructed? At the head. Why? In order to divert the river water towards the canal. So we want to take the river water into our canal. So how we are going to do that? With the help of diversion headwork, which are constructed at the head of the canal, so as to ensure a regulated continuous supply of silt free water. So in this process we must be aware that we require silt free water with a certain minimum head into the canal. Why this is required? So that the water can flow. Without any head, water will not be able to flow. And these structures or these works are known as diversion headworks. So I hope this is clear. So what are these works? What are these structures called? So weir and barrage. There are two types of diversion headworks. So these terms you must have learned or you must have heard. So let us see how these are different. In general, the above purpose can be accomplished. What purpose? The diversion purpose. By constructing a barrier across the river, so as to raise the water level on the upstream side of the obstruction and thus to feed the main canals taking off from its upstream side. So from where we are taking water? From the upstream of the river at one or both of its flanks. So in this way we can divert the river water into the canal. The ponding of water, ponding means the accumulation of water across any barrier. So the ponding of water can be achieved either only by a permanent pakka raised crest across the river. One method is this, to construct a permanent pakka raised crest across the river, or by a raised crest supplemented by falling counterbalanced gates or shutters. So one way is to make a permanent pakka raised crest, or along with this, if we can also provide gates and shutters working over the crest. So at the crest we can provide gates or shutters. So we will see why these gates and shutters are being constructed. If a major part of the entire ponding of water is achieved by a raised crest, okay, so major part of ponding is raised by a crest and a smaller part or negligible part of it is achieved by the shutter, then this barrier is known as weir. Okay, major portion should be accumulated by or raised by crest, and the very smaller or negligible part should be raised by the shutter, then that structure will be weir. So this is the weir. So across the river we have constructed this kind of structure. So river is flowing like this, okay, into the plane of the page. So what water is coming through from this side, so due to this obstruction it will get ponding will happen. So here ponding P, let us say P1 and P2. P1 is due to crest, P2 is due to shutter. So P1 total, here no gates or shutters are there, so P1 is equal to total ponding is raised by crest. So this is wear, or with respect to P2 P1 P2 should be very less, then only it will be termed as what, wear. Okay. On the other hand, if most of the ponding is done by gates and a smaller or negligible part of it is done by the raised crest, then the barrier is known as barrage. So reverse of this is barrage. So here P2 will be very much larger with respect to the P1, or in many cases it will be 0 also. So gate is playing major role in case of barrage, crest is playing a major role in case of wear. So I hope this is clear. So let us see a typical layout of diversion headwork. So you can see the water river flow is along this. So this is constructed along a river. So we are seeing a cross section, we are seeing a plan. So these are the guide banks. By what they are doing, they are guiding the water to flow here. This is a divide wall, this is a fish ladder. So due to this, the river is flowing in a very higher cross section area, but this cross section is very small. So in this region velocity will become very high. So it will become impractical or impossible for fishes to cross this canal. So in order to help the fishes, we provide fish ladders. So these are ladders. So due to this obstruction, water speed or velocity will become very less, and the fishes will use this ladder to cross this divide wall, cross this weir, sorry. Okay, so this is called a fish ladder. So this is the obstruction. Here we have made the obstruction. So at this, before this obstruction, we are taking the canal, off canal, because the head will be very high, so water will easily flow. This is canal head regulator because it is made at the head of the canal. These are weirs divided into various bays. These are marginal bunds joined to a high contour. So you can see this diagram in exam, it can be asked to you. Now let us see, actually the chapter is the seepage theories, various seepage theories, and the design of subsurface structures. So in order to study this seepage theory, we have discussed the diversion headworks. These are used for diversion headworks. That's why we have studied, we have seen about the diversion headwork. So the main topic is seepage theories. So seepage in geotech you will learn, or you might have learned up till now. So seepage is a big problem, especially where the flow through soil is happening. Why? Because due to seepage, the effective stress of the soil is becoming, it reduces the effective stress, and effective stress is responsible for the strength of the soil. So that's why seepage is a problem for soil. And our hydraulic structures, these are very heavy structures, and these are constructed over soil only. So in order to check the stability, we have to look for the failure of the structures which are made above the soil. So failure of hydraulic structure founded on a pervious foundation. Why pervious foundation? Because if the foundation is impervious, Impervious means there is no possibility of flowing of water. So if no water is there, no seepage is occurring, so there is no problem of seepage. But in pervious foundations, water is able to flow, so seepage will occur. So that's why we are seeing the failure of hydraulic structure. First we are seeing how this failure is occurring, then we will see how we can reduce that. So hydraulic structures such as dams, weirs, barrages, head regulators, cross drainage works, etc. may either be founded on a impervious solid rock foundation or on a pervious foundation. Whenever such a structure is founded on a pervious foundation, it is subjected to seepage of water beneath the structure, in addition to all other forces to which it will be subjected when founded on an impervious rock foundation. So this is the problem with pervious foundation. For impervious, it is not having any problem of seepage. In India, most of these hydraulic structures are required to be founded on alluvial soil foundations, which do allow seepage beneath them. So soil in India is mostly we are having alluvial soil, which is a pervious soil, so problem of seepage is there. The water seeping below the body of the hydraulic structure endangers the stability. So stability is in danger due to this water flowing beneath the structure. How? The structure and may cause its failure either by piping or by direct uplift. So these are the two major problems when water is flowing under the hydraulic structure, when this is possible only for a pervious foundation. So let us see what is these two failures. So first is failure by piping or undermining. When the seepage water retains sufficient residual force at the emerging downstream end of the work, it may lift up the soil particles. So due to very less intermolecular forces between the soil particles, the water can easily penetrate, will easily make its place between two particles, and in this way the effective stress will get reduced or it may become zero. So in that case the water will be able to lift the small soil particles, which leads to increase in porosity of the soil by progressive removal of soil. So what is happening? What the soil is flowing with the water. So if it is flowing with the water, so the structure, the soil beneath the structure will become more porous, because due to this flowing of soil with the water, the structure may ultimately subside into the hollow so formed, resulting in failure of the structure. So if no measures are being taken, so all the soil will flow and making a pipe like hollow, and the whole structure is subsidized. So in this way, piping failure, this you will learn in more detail into soil mechanics or geotech. There you will see the mechanism, how this sigma is become zero and how it will lead to this pipe failure. Second is failure by direct uplift. The water seeping below the structure exerts an uplift pressure on the floor of the structure due to buoyancy. If this pressure is not counterbalanced by the weight of the concrete or masonry floor, the structure will fail by a rupture of the part of the floor. So downward floor is gravity, which will act due to weight, and upward force is uplift. So if this uplift is greater than the weight, then the failure will occur. So the above concepts of the failure of hydraulic structures due to subsurface flow were introduced by Bleek on the basis of experiments and the research work conducted after the failure of Khanki Weir, which was designed on experience and induction without any rational theory. So these concepts were given by Bleek. Okay. and this was based on experience and intuition. So we can easily say this method was not rational or not scientific. So now let us see Bleek's creep theory for seepage flow. So Bleek was the first among all to have observed this problem, and he tried to provide the solution as well. So later on the Lane and finally Khosla has tried to provide a very comprehensive solution for this problem. So before moving to Khosla's theory, let us see what is the Bleek's theory. So according to Bleek's theory, the percolating water follows the outline of the base of the foundation of the hydraulic structure. So Bleek observed and he tried to present that he tried to trace the path of the water which is percolating, and what he found that it follows the outline of the base of the foundation of the hydraulic structure, or water creeps along the bottom contour. That's why this theory is termed as creep theory also, because he observed that water is creeping along the bottom contour of the structure. The length of the path thus traversed by water is called the length of the creep. So he tried to calculate the length of the creep, length of the creeping water, length of the water path. Further, it is assumed in this theory that the loss of head is proportional to the length of the creep. So head loss which is being lost during this flow is proportional to the length of the creep. So that's why length of the creep has become the central idea of this theory. So if HL is the total head loss between the upstream and the downstream, so HL is the total head lost over a length which is L, which is the length of creep, then the loss of head per unit creep length will be HL upon L, which is the gradient also, and it is called the hydraulic gradient. Further, Bleek makes no distinction between horizontal and vertical creep. So this was the major drawback of this theory, that he was not able to distinguish between horizontal creep and vertical creep. So let us see how the Bleek has defined, or how he has calculated the length of the creep. So this is a foundation, this is the structure, and water is being stored here, and these are the piles which are made to provide strength to this structure. So this is the bottom floor. So the Bleek has told that the water is following the bottom contour of the structure. So this is the bottom contour. So this total length will be the creep length. So consider a section. Let HL be the difference of water level between upstream and downstream. So total upstream and downstream is differentiated by HL. This is the head loss, head available or head difference between upstream and downstream end. So water will seep along the bottom contour as shown. So in this way water is going to creep. So the total length of creep is given by, what will be the length? D1 plus D1. So this D1, then again this D1, L1, this is L1, distance between two piles, these piles, then D2 plus D2, then L2, this is L2, then D3 plus D3. So in this way we can calculate the length. So how much it will be? L1 plus L2, L1 plus L2 is B, and 2 times D1 plus D2 plus D3, or L is B plus 2 times this. So head loss per unit length will be HL upon this total length. And what is HL by L is hydraulic gradient. So head loss is equal to HL by L into head loss is equal to HL by L into 2d1. So at this point, this is a linear curve, so it would be directly proportional to the length. So here it HL by L, so the distance which is covered by water from this point to this point is 2d1. So HL by L into 2d1, this will be the hydraulic gradient or head loss. From this to this, from this to this, it will be HL by L into 2d2, and similarly HL by L into 2d3. So this is the same point which is written over here. So head loss is equal to HL by L into 2d1, 2d2 and 2d3 will occur respectively in the planes of three vertical cutoffs. So at the three vertical cutoffs or piles, these will be the head losses. Now how we are going to ensure the safety against piping or undermining. So according to Bleek, the safety against piping can be ensured by providing sufficient creep length given by L. So the creep length L which is being provided is given by C into HL. So this is the formula proposed by Bleek. So what is C? C is the Bleek's coefficient for the soil. HL and L we know. So different values, he provided the different values of C for different types of soil. Okay, so let us see. So fine micaceous soil, micaceous sand, C is 15, and safe hydraulic gradient should be less than 1 by 15. So this is 1 by C. Coarse grain 12 or 1 by 12 gradient. So for sand mixed with boulder and gravel 5 to 9 or 1 by 5 to 1 by 9, this is the value of C. Accordingly 1 by C will be the safe hydraulic gradient. Light sand and mud is 1 by 8 and 8. So this, from this table, if nothing is given in the question, you can use this table to calculate the value of C and hence the value of safe hydraulic gradient. So the hydraulic gradient, that is HL by L, is then equal to 1 by C. Hence it may be stated that the hydraulic gradient must be kept under a safe limit in order to ensure safety against piping. Okay, so if we are limiting the hydraulic gradient within 1 by C, less than 1 by C, then we can say, according to Bleek's theory, that this structure is safe against piping. Now the second was safety against uplift pressure. So the ordinate of the HGL, hydraulic gradient line, this you might have studied in your fluid mechanics classes. Hydraulic gradient line above the bottom of the floor represent the residual uplift water head at the point. So hydraulic gradient line, hydraulic means related to water, gradient line. So the water gradient line or the water head line, how the water head is varying at various sections above the bottom of the floor represent the residual uplift water head at each point. So the uplift force will be proportional to this gradient or this ordinate. If let us say H dash meters is the ordinate, then water pressure equal to H dash meter will act at this point. So pressure is rho GH, force is pressure into area. So the force is proportional to the head that is acting at that point and has to be counterbalanced by the weight of the floor of thickness T. So we have to decide the thickness of the floor to ensure the safety against uplift pressure. So the floor is having some thickness T, and the weight of this T thickness floor will be counterbalanced to ensure the safety against uplift pressure. So let us see how we are going to determine. So uplift caused by the seeping water will be gamma W into H dash. This is simply pressure, rho into G into H. Gamma W is unit weight of water. Downward pressure due to weight of the concrete floor will be gamma into G. This is the specific weight of the concrete multiplied by the thickness T. Gc is the specific gravity of the floor material. So for equilibrium, these two have to become equal. that is gamma w into h dash is equal to gamma w c into t, or h dash is simply gc into t. Now h dash minus t, so let us say this is the thickness t and this is the h dash. So h dash minus t will be the net head above this floor. Okay, so h dash minus t, we are subtracting t from both sides, is equal to gc into t minus t. So h dash minus t is, t will become common, gc minus 1, t is h dash minus t upon gc minus 1, or we can say this is h, the head above the floor, so h upon gc minus 1. So this much thickness, this is the least thickness, so t should be greater than equal to h upon gc minus 1 to be safe against the upliftment. So h is the ordinate of HDL above the top of the floor. Okay, gc minus 1 is the submerged specific gravity of the floor. So saturated, submerged, dry, bulk, this you have seen in your first unit of soil mechanics. So from there you know gc minus 1, g minus 1 was the submerged specific gravity of the floor material. Hence the thickness of the floor can be easily determined by using the above equation. This thickness is generally increased by 33% so as to allow a suitable factor of safety. So this was minimum, so 1.33 times of this, that is more 30% more. It may be mentioned that the floor thickness has to be designed according to the above equation only for the downstream floor and for the worst condition, that is when the maximum ordinate of HGL occur. So this thickness is provided for downstream floor because there the gradient is very high. So at that point only the worst maximum ordinate of HGL is occurring. So the water standing on the upstream floor more than counterbalance the uplift caused by the same water, and hence only a nominal thickness is required at upstream. So worst condition is available at downstream and nominal condition at upstream. Hence while designing apron, just this is the homework, comment what is apron. It is not a very simple thing, it is, that's why I am telling you to search it. Apron of hydraulic structure on Bleek's theory for subsurface floor. The floor thickness is designed in accordance with the above rule and sufficient length of Pakka floor given by this L was given by the first equation is provided so as to ensure a safe value of hydraulic gradient. So we have to ensure the safety against piping as well as against upliftment. For piping we have to provide this much length, and for safety against upliftment we have to provide T. Okay, the thickness. Now let us see, this is very small topic, Lane's weighted creep theory. Now Bleeks in his theory has calculated the length of creep. Length of creep is calculated and also thickness by simply adding the horizontal creep length and the vertical creep length. So he was not able to distinguish between vertical and horizontal creep, making no distinction between the two creeps. However, Lane on the basis of his analysis carried out on 200 dams all over the world stipulated that the horizontal creep is less effective in reducing uplift than the vertical creep. So more dangerous is vertical creep, horizontal creep is not that much dangerous. So he therefore suggested a weightage factor of 1/3 for the horizontal creep as against 1 for the vertical. So in Bleek's theory, what he did, he used one factor for horizontal as well as vertical. So Lane, by studying 200 dams all over the world, he tell that a weight factor of 1/3 should be used for horizontal creep. So L will be, so this is vertical, this is same, this is horizontal, so it will become 1/3. Now to ensure safety against piping according to this theory, the creep length L must not be less than C1 into HL, where HL is the head causing flow and C1 is the Lane's creep coefficient. So this same values, this is 1/C This is type of soil. So Lenz's theory was an improvement over Bleek's theory, but however was purely empirical without any rational basis, and hence generally it is not adopted in any design. Bleek's theory, though it is still used, but Lenz's theory is particularly nowhere used and is having only a theoretical importance. So even we have arrived at Khosla theory, but still we are using Bleek's theory, but nowhere we are using Lenz's theory. Why? Because there was no scientific reason or no rational thinking behind this formula which he has given. A 1/3 factor he has given just like that, based on this observation of 200 amps. What if in the 201st NAM it is not following? So the structure will fail. So that's why in the next lecture we will be dealing with the Khosla's theory in detail. So this is all for this lecture. Thank you.